The second thing we're going to look at, starting with R, is respecting dissent, to respect the views of others. And this is really important because when it comes to Quran and Sunnah, there are those texts of the Quran and Sunnah that, while the Quran is authentic and hadith that are multiple chained are considered authentic, no doubt about them, but single chained hadith are zanni, they are probabilistic, they are speculative, they are presumptive, they are not 100% certain. Even when it is sahih, it's not 100% certain when you just have 1, 2, 3 people who narrated it. This is well known in all the schools of Islamic jurisprudence, and that's why single chain hadith are not used to establish fundamental aqidah. A person doesn't reject a single chain hadith and becomes a kafir unless that hadith is backed up by other verses of the Quran or other hadith that are more authentic. So the need to recognize that when it comes to the sources of Sharia, there's what is authentic and nobody argues about, but there's a level of speculation about. When it comes to also the implication, what's it saying? Which tafsir are you using? This is where you see human reasoning coming in. And when ijtihad is required, and people are now using qiyas or reasoning by analogy, they're looking at the opinion of a sahaba, they're looking at public interest, they're looking at urf or custom, they're looking at maslaha or istihsan, juristic preference. Once scholars are no more quoting directly Quran, Sunnah, and it's explicitly clear, and you start hearing differing opinions about how things are being interpreted, or scholars differ, or the schools of thought differ, then please, learn to respect the differences. And khilaf, diversity of opinion, is not disunity, it's difference of opinion. We have different sects. You have the Shia, you have, and some are big sects, some are minor sects, some, you have the Ja'fari school of the Shia in fiqh, but they are Muslims. We go for Hajj together. In fact, for any lay person, if you want to know whether somebody's group is regarded as Muslim or not, simply ask, are they allowed to go for Hajj? That's the simple, maybe simplistic, but that's a simple way of answering that question. If somebody says, this Tablighi or the Hanbali, or I've heard about Zahiri, or I've heard about Mu'tazila, or I've heard about this, I heard about that, are these Muslims? If they are allowed to go for Hajj, they are Muslims. And please don't dwell on that. Pray that Allah guides everybody, and pray that Allah guides you, and don't busy yourself with some of these areas when you've got a life to live and you've got so many problems to use your life to solve, instead of dealing with things that have not been resolved over centuries. To recognize that ijtihad and juristic reasoning is more like maths than like medicine. It's more like medicine than like maths, I'm sorry to say. Ijtihad and juristic reasoning is more like medicine. There's different medicines for different illnesses. Why? What's the cure for malaria? Well, it depends on whether you're pregnant or not, depends on whether you're a child or not, depends on the blood count, depends on how serious your malaria is. It's not a simple, straightforward thing. Ijtihad, just like medicine, is responsive to context. And so I want to help us remember that. We have to respect diversity. It's not like maths. It's not like 2 + 3 is equal to 5, irrespective of where you are and what age you are and all of that. So let's learn that we will have differences of opinion, and it's healthy, actually. We have to learn to agree to disagree agreeably. That's what the ethics and etiquettes of disagreement, the adab of ikhtilaf, are, the courtesy that scholars implement to ensure that differences don't lead to disunity. The ethics and etiquettes of disagreement are like the oil that is put into an engine. It prevents it from overheating and knocking. So we will have differences, but we recognize that we are united in that diversity. We've got a greater common denominator in what is called the ma'alum min ad-din bid-darura, those well-known, established, essential teachings of Islam that everybody agrees with, those explicitly clear, certain, definitive, categorical teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah mutawatir, those hadith that have so many chains that nobody questions their authenticity. So those are what keep us together. We've got some fundamental things about aqidah, about ibadah, about akhlaq and behavior, creed, interactions, halal and haram, we all agree on. So these are what our common denominators. Those are the things that make us differ. And we differ, of course, on the furu, on the branches, on the subsidiary, secondary issues. And we shouldn't allow the less important to undermine brotherhood and the greater important things. As always understand that we are learning, and your intelligent self today, you will look back and just laugh at in the next 5, 10 years, maybe 1 year, maybe less if you read a lot. And just as life always teaches us lessons, we need to start with humility and curiosity. Start with the possibility that you may be wrong. Certainty is a very useless concept in most things. There are those things we're certain about, alhamdulillah, but even in those things that we are certain about and doubt is created, let's use humility and curiosity to resolve the doubts by seeking knowledge and re-establishing some of our firm beliefs. And so if anybody wants to put doubt in, does God exist? No problem. Let's look into it. And you normally, what we'll find is if you are right, then you've got nothing to fear. You will finally come and find greater evidence for your position. If you were wrong about a particular belief, then good, you were humble and curious enough. Otherwise, you'll just be holding on to falsehood for a long time. Sometimes you'll die with it. So always have the understanding of the possibility that you could be wrong. And maybe you're right, but you could be wrong. So listen and be intellectually humble. Recognize only Allah knows. And only Allah is all-knowing. Only Allah knows what is best. And we continue to learn. Even after the grave, we continue to learn in the hereafter. We never become all-knowing. So let's respect that Allah has given various forms of knowledge and specializations to others. And while we think we're right, we could be wrong.